A warm welcome to the Magpie Circle YouTube and Twitter live show tonight. What a great... I'm just watching one of our guests go walkabout at the minute, Mr. Bishop. He was like that in midfield. He was like that in midfield. He used to walk around everywhere, didn't he? He was never still, which is not a bad thing, to be fair. But clearly, I think he's just getting into that sort of anchorman midfield role. Neal, welcome.
Hey, mate, all right?
Hey, good to see you, pal. And our resident panellist from down south, Mr. Nicholson. Kev, good to see you.
Evening, how are we?
Hey, I'm very well. It's a lovely silhouette view of Bish at the minute, isn't it? It's like, hey, have you delivered a box of milk trays or Black Magic recently? You remember that when the black guys used to be all in black delivering?
Mate, I'm trying to find a quiet place in the house because it's canny at the minute, but I think I finally managed it.
Right, we've got you. Loads to get through tonight. Loads to get through. And really, I just want to say a thank you to Notts fans and a reminder of the power of supporters. Because sometimes fans think, oh, we can't influence things. I promise you can. Now, clearly, on a global level, we have seen the power of supporters and players in the complete turnaround of the so-called European Super League. In the past 48 hours. Now that, albeit at a much lower level, has coincided with a huge turnaround in the club's Notts County's approach to the playoffs. We had Donna Reardon on the show on Monday, and we were talking about Notts, for whatever reason, seemingly studiously avoiding any mention of the playoffs, talking about performance levels, talking about just the next game. And that was quite a big theme on the show on Monday. And lo and behold, Tuesday morning, Connell Rawlinson comes out. We will absolutely make the playoffs. Great. We all want to hear it. Fans loved it. And I know it's only 1%. Okay. But you guys, this show, and I can tell you that the owners, Alexander and Christoph Reitz downwards, they all watch this show. Okay. They all watch this show. So Bish, if you need a new contract in midfield, okay, we might be able to get you one tonight if you talk well.
Retired.
Now then, I want to kick off, Bish, with you, and I want you to talk a little bit because clearly we are talking about looking ahead for the rest of the season. We're talking about getting the best out of a group of players that it might be argued haven't delivered quite as much as they could. And if we roll back to 2009-2010, when Ian McParland had put together a very talented group of players, winners, but nevertheless was still out of the playoffs when in came Steve Cottrell. And I think it's fair to say the managerial impact was immediate. But Steve was kind of fairly forthright with all you guys. Just talk to us as a player, because you'd already been through 3 managers in 4.5 months. Steve Cottrell came in like a whirlwind, and he kind of put it on the line to you, didn't he?
Yeah, he basically said it how it is. I mean, he told us we're underachieving. We've obviously cost 2 or 3 managers the jobs that season, and he wasn't going to be another one. And like I say, he didn't suffer fools. He didn't really care for anyone's ego, where they'd been, where they'd played. He laid it out to us. He said, "Look, you're wasting your season. You're wasting your careers." It was like it was a shock when he come in, shock and awe sort of thing. But look, it worked for that group of players. I think that's a key thing for that group of players that needed to hear that. Not every group of players is the same. Not especially. I know I'm going to sound like an old man, but it has changed. I don't think it be that forthright with some group of players. Take it to heart. So looking at Notts' situation, I don't know if some players were close to the older manager, knowing the contracts up in the summer, thinking whatever happens here, I'm out the door. Every situation, every club, at every point in time is different, and I don't think you get generic statements that this works, that works. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. I think it's very individualistic. For every dressing room is different, and every player will have individual needs.
Were you surprised when, because you follow the show, you've offered a few viewpoints previously. Were you surprised?
What with the sacking?
Well, yeah, I think both. What in terms of Neal being removed and the subsequent results that Notts have had, because it's 4 out of 6 defeats in the league.
Obviously, I'm aware. I watched a couple of the games on the I follow them and bits and pieces, but they weren't playing well, but they were there or thereabouts. I think I think they're scraped in the playoffs with Neal Ardley, and then who knows? When I watched them last season in the playoff against Harrogate, I think it was evident that Harrogate were the better team by far. I thought they had more energy, more legs, more drive, more energy. They just ran all over Notts in that final. I don't think anyone watching that game could have said that Notts were the better team. And I think what maybe frustrated a lot of people is that the deficiencies that were shown in that final and that season weren't improved or players brought in what supporters perceived to be areas where they needed strengthening, and they certainly weren't going to win it, in my opinion. I mean, I look at Hartlepool's squad. I think Hartlepool have got a better team on paper than Notts. I know everyone talks about on paper, but on paper wins you nothing. And obviously, for whatever reason, that they've now hit the buffer since the new guys come in. But yeah, back to your point, I thought it's a strange appointment. I mean, for me, you can't pick or choose what season. If you're challenging and you're up there, then you go for it. All I've heard since he's come in is this next season. Well, you're up there with a chance of getting back into the Football League. Sod next season. This is what an opportunity this is to go this year. So from our point of view, yeah, strange timing, and certainly, although I mean, I've switched to the other side now. You've got to give the new guy time. He'll have his own ideas he wants to implement. But yeah, certainly from the outside looking in, a very strange appointment.
Very good, Bish, as always. Kev, Bish has kind of alluded to there. Steve Cotterill, strong characters went in 29. We're talking 12 years ago now. Times change. You obviously work with younger players at Exeter. Are there different dynamics now needed to work successfully with players? Because clearly Ian Birchinall would fit into a category of a new type of coach, yeah? Not a traditional values, but you understand the point I'm making. It's a different way of communicating, a different approach. I think he's 38 years old. Where's the needle now? Where's the needle now between traditional and, if you like, new wave?
I mean, first of all, I've never once in my life heard Bish sound as intelligent as what he just did. So I'm a little bit thrown at this point. I wasn't expecting that.
In a cave.
Sorry, mate.
Have you been living in a cave these last years?
Well, the truth is, yeah. I mean, I was lucky enough when I started playing and signed pro in '97. It was right at the end of what you'd know as like the drinking culture. So there was probably a few years there where lads used to go home from pre-season, or they'd go off at the end of the season. They'd get drunk every day. They'd put on about 2 stone. They'd come back for pre-season, and there was 2 or 3 weeks of running just to shift the weight.
Yeah, then we're talking Darren Caskey, are we?
He was probably the last of that. Yeah, there was a school at Notts that I'm sure some of the Notts fans around at that time probably saw them out on a regular. They did prepare well Thursday and Friday, but the rest of the time, Saturday night we'll have a few, and Sunday's an all-dayer and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, as that developed, you then got kind of the more new school guys that came through, and the difference was that when you were a player, when I first started, the manager told you to do something, you did it. A good manager would tell you what to do, and he might even show you how to do it. Never in a million years would you ask him why. As time's gone on now, these young players, they want to know why. They've not come through that level of, I don't want to say discipline, because there was an element of bullying back then where it was ridiculous, some of the stuff that went on. So I'm not saying it's all bad by any stretch, because I think it's good for players to want to know why they're doing something. I think if they're in on the plan to a degree, or made to feel like they're in on the plan, the chances are if something goes wrong, they'll stick with it because they were part of making that decision. They know why they're doing it. They're all on board. They're in it as a group. Something's gone wrong. Well, it's not just the manager that's told me to do this, and I didn't agree with him anyway. We're all in this now. And as time goes on, and I don't know what generation we're in. Is it Generation Z or X now? I forget. But I now notice that towards the end of my playing career, I went to Kidderminster, and somebody gave the ball away doing something stupid, and I gave him a bit of, "Oi, will you sort yourself out?" And I did it a couple of games, and I wasn't an aggressive player on the pitch by any stretch, not compared to the guy who's on here with me. And the guy came up to me after the game. He went, "Wow, you're angry, aren't you?" And I thought that was like a moment where I thought, God no, you should have played with the guy 15 years ago. You'd get strung up in the dressing room at the end of it. And I think that shift was that when I would have played with Bish at Scarborough, he'd regularly give the ball away. I'd tell him to sort himself out. He'd tell me where to go. At the end of the game, we'd shake hands, we'd get on with it. There wouldn't be a second thought of it. That was just part of getting each other going. And I'm using Bish as an example, but I'm talking generals as players. You tell each other forcefully, sort yourself out. You might have a snap back, but after the game, nothing was said about it. What you've tended to find and what I've tended to see as it goes on, if you speak like that to a young player now, they won't talk to you for 3 weeks. And that's the difference in the generation. But I think there's a strength to some of that. There's a strength to a player wanting to know why they're doing something. And the best managers and the best coaches now, they tell you why you're going to do something. They tell you what you're going to do, and then they show you how you're going to do it. And if they can do that, you're onto a winner. And especially if that guy then is, if he's a good man manager, if he's good with the guys, if he's a good communicator, but he keeps that kind of social construct in place where people know that there's a line and they don't cross it. It's not about being your mate. It's not about being a nice guy for the sake of being a nice guy. It's about having a plan and you're on board with this plan and we'll go and do it together. In my experience, that's where it's been going, and that's where you get the best results now.
Bish, when we've had you before on the programme, you've been very honest, and you talk about how you were a terrible trainer. Yeah, one of the worst on the training ground. But come the game, out you came. Roll your sleeves up, do the business. There does seem to appear to be now far more emphasis that managers and coaches apply to training properly. So, for instance, Ian Birchinall last week omitted 3 players. I'm going to try and remember who they were: Eli Sam, Rodriguez, and Jordan Barnett. Okay, he cut them out the squad completely. And when he was asked at the end of the game, were they injured, whatever, he just turned around to the interviewer and said, training not acceptable, not good enough. That's why they're not in the squad. You're obviously now starting those first steps on coaching yourself. What do you think of that approach? Is training, the quality of the way you train now, far more important than it used to be? Or is it still fundamentally at the 11th hour about what you do in the 90 minutes?
Firstly, my training performances weren't intentionally poor. I think it was just, it was all about the adrenaline of a match day for me, and that used to get me pumping. I know people talk about winner, you're a born winner, but if you win a 5-side competition or you train or you finish last, what do you get? You don't come off with losing anything. That was just my mindset. But then on a match day, it was just like someone switched. There's 3 points. It's win or losing. It really matters here. There's something on the line. I hear people talk about you're born winners. It was just not for me. You know what I mean? I probably got ticked over, and then the later I got it, sort of the penny dropped a bit more. That look, you do. You know what I mean? It does come out on a Saturday or a Tuesday evening whenever you're playing. That if your training performances are high, it's easier to maintain that standard on a match day. And so the penny did drop. But I think that again, that probably comes from my non-league background, to be honest. But look, how many managers say it all the time doing that? I'll pick, especially new managers. I'll pick my team on how you train, or forget beat. But ultimately, managers will pick what the best 11, what they think the best 11 is. The majority of managers, should I say, that will pick the starting 11 and subs on what they think is going to get the result of the weekend, not how you've trained on a Monday, Tuesday, whatever. But obviously, he's trying to make a statement. He's new in the door. He's obviously the owner's man. I don't know what he's obviously got a decent contract. He knows he's going to be there next season and probably feels he's safe to make a statement like that. Again, it's a difficult one because what do them 3 go? Do they go in the dressing room and down tools and start whispering to teammates, we're not having this guy, we're not doing this, he's out of order, I'm not used to it, blah, blah, blah? Or do they take it the right way, which is probably intended, look, book your ideas up, get him Monday morning, show the manager you deserve a place in the match day squad. But it's certainly a bold statement to make, and probably 3 lads who would be involved if not starting.
Okay, you've mentioned non-league days, and we've had a few questions in advance. So you two go back to Scarborough, correct, Nico? Was it when Gary Mills ostracised you from Meadow Lane?
It was, yes, it was. I don't think, were you there when I came on loan, Bish? I don't think you were you, the first?
No, mate, you were there when I signed.
Yeah, so yeah, I went on loan when Millsy decided that he wasn't a fan.
Yeah, what a guy! I love that.
Cheers, mate. I knew you'd back him on that, and then I ended up there for 2 full seasons, and Bish came along for me to make him look like a decent player.
Where was Scarborough? Was Scarborough in the league, or they dropped out at that point?
Conference,
National League conference, as it was.
Yeah. What did you both learn there playing in the conference?
Go on, Nico. You can go first.
I learned that it was a great mix of older players coming on down and the odd team in that level that were throwing a few quid around, and they saw it as a last payday. Younger players who hadn't quite made it at league level, they were trying to fight their way back up and get into those football leagues. It was character building because you went to go and play at some places that you really wouldn't want to go and play at as a general thing. It was passionate. It was raw. It was, I mean, we were lucky, to be fair. Scarborough, really well supported. An old but nice old stadium. You know, it had a couple of decent stands. It had a good following. It had a reasonably good, really good atmosphere, to be fair, during games. We had some great games against York and the local rivals like that. But it was where you were made, kind of make or break. I think Bish will probably talk about that. We came into it, and it probably was a big making of him. For me, I dropped out of the league from Notts and then spent 5 years in the National League, desperately trying to get back, and I got back through a promotion, not getting selected or signed by anyone. So it's a great league. It was great for me. I love playing in it to a degree, but Football League is definitely the place to be.
Bish, what do you remember of your times at Scarborough with Nico?
Yeah, look, for me, I was coming the other way. I was on the way up. So for me, it was. I thought it was great. Obviously, the biggest stadium, Scarborough, like Nico says, nice little setup, really good fan base. Going to some places, Halifax, York, great atmospheres, derbies. For me, it was a stepping stone. I mean, I was probably introduced to some of the drinking culture there. But lucky we got away with it a bit, really, because it's easy to get sucked in. Certainly for me, I thought we're out Tuesdays, just touching on it. I know, but it was a great stepping stone for me. And like I say, I was used to non-league football. Obviously, I've spoken about before here. So it was just another stepping stone. But it was sort of, you're on the verge of the football league, and it's almost a taster for what it could be at that level. Like I say, because there is some good teams. You do go to some decent places. I know it's still non-league, but like I say, there's some good clubs at that level. And now it was just, for me, it was just a taster, and like sort of just whet the appetite a bit more to want it to progress.
Bit of ego massaging for you now, Bish. We've got a few observations in. SK, we can only wish for a Neal Bishop right now. Exactly what we need: aggression, creativity, and maximum effort in one player. Miles Scott, Neal Bishop, probably my favourite Notts player of the last 10 years. Okay, 15 years. And I think I used to work with Kevin's mum. I don't know where that one's come from, but anyway.
I didn't sign up for this. Tell him Bish how great he is and bringing my mum into it.
Oh, dear me. Elliot Burrows, Bish and Ravenhill, what we do for that pairing now. Tom, up the goals. We've got a few Torquay fans tonight. That's all good. Noel Walsh. I remember Bish getting a lot of stick towards the end of his Notts career, totally unwarranted. Mitch Rose the same last year. We've missed those kind of midfield players this year. Right, okay. Nico, what are Torquay doing right this year? Runaway leaders for the first third of the season, caved in a bit, second third, and now going into the final third, putting another big run together.
Yeah, I don't think they've done a huge amount wrong. I think Gary Johnson has brought in what you would look at a very traditional and very nice blend of youth and experience. he's been there and done it before at that level. He understands what is required to get out of a league that is incredibly tough to get out of. You know, in some ways, they're fortunate that the blip only lasted as long as it did, because often in the National League, one blip can be you done. You know, if you fall too far behind, the fact that they'd kind of given themselves that cushion was a massive advantage as to what came. But the blip really coincided with a huge amount of injuries. And there's no squad at that level that is going to be big enough to be able to cope with too many injuries to key players. And I think as those players have started to come back, I think they've picked up a couple more now, but as they've started to come back, you know, players like Danny Wright, you know, we had a behind closed door friendly Exeter's under 23s against Torquay's kind of fringe players, and Danny Wright was coming back, and you saw it then. It was his first kind of game back. I think he actually scored the winner. That was on a Monday, and he scored the winner on a Saturday. But you can just see that he's a class player. He's big, he's strong, he's nasty. He holds it up well. He gets on the end of flick-ons. He gets on the end of things in both boxes to clear it or to score his goal. And he knows the level. He's been promoted. He's got that experience. And in fairness to the guy, he really looked after himself. Again, he was one I was lucky enough to play with at Kidderminster. And I say lucky enough, but to be fair, he had an absolute nightmare at Kidderminster. It didn't work for him. But he's got himself in great shape. He's got himself fit and sharp. And you could see just in that game that I was watching there that he was going to be a big plus when he came back. And I think now they've got that fitness, and like with all teams, I don't care who you are, if you've got confidence, and Torquay seem to have nicked a lot of kind of goals in the last 10 minutes to pick up points. That's a massively great habit to have. And they seem to be back on that run.
Bish, do you remember last day of the season, of the championship season down in Torquay? Went down on the Friday. Do you remember the old hotel where we stayed? And I think I was staying there with my lad. They must have had the old big Victorian place in its own right. They must have had the smallest hotel rooms in the world. Do you remember?
Yeah, yes, I do. It was a great. Well, yeah, it was. I don't remember much about the journey home. I'm not going to lie, because that was some party. But the hotel, I remember. Yeah, I remember we got to. I remember obviously we won the league, and I think we drew, didn't we? And we just stopped at the first off license on the way home. Obviously, massive journey. Lads were all in a great mood. Season done. It's just going to be one big tear up on the way home, and then we'll go out in Nottingham. So I've stopped at gone the off door, and I've got some beers and whacked them on the counter. And the gaffer Steve Cott was there, and he goes, is that what you having, Bish? I'll get these. And all the lads must have heard. Next 2 minutes later, you should have seen. You couldn't see the checkout last behind the thing. That was just part of the beers. The gaffer stood there with his credit card, like, oh no, what's happening here? But then, to be fair, when he pays for all the lads, and we got on. And I think we had 2 or 3 stops. That's how much ale got sunk on that trip. We stopped 2 or 3 times up and topped it up. We had Husey there tipping cans over people's heads, and Luke Rogers and doing. But great memories of Torquay. I think that's the only time I played there, to be honest, that one time.
Yeah, there's the pitch invasion at the end. It was a hot day, if I remember. Finished 0-0. Were you playing in that one, Nico?
Yeah, that was our kind of first year back in the league and great escape season as such. We looked like we were on our way down, and then we had a really good run at the end. We didn't concede a goal for about the last 6 games, I think it was. So, yeah, I was hugely relieved because I hadn't played that much that season, and it was looking like I was done, but managed to hang on for a few more years after that.
Very good.
Remember the Guard of Honour?
Say again?
Remember the Guard of Honour?
I tried to forget. The moment I saw you come out, I tried to forget.
I remember what you said to me. You said, I can't believe I'm effing doing this for you, as I walked down the middle of it. I remember it.
Yeah.
I just started laughing.
I don't know about you. I've got a great memory for things that I want to remember.
I remember that.
Hey, good man. I can't remember that Guard of Honour. Very good.
Yeah, it was nice to do. Like I say, I looked up and he was abusing me. I can't believe I'm effing doing this for you. It was fun, to be fair. Good crack from you, to be fair.
We've got a Mansfield lad, Bish. He's done very well. Young lad, Jimmy Knowles. Got a hat-trick the other week, which at any level, when you're a teenager, is some achievement. Have you come across him much or not during your time at Mansfield?
Yeah, he trained with us for last season and probably the season before he dabbed in. And I like him as a lad. I think he's a goal scorer. I don't think he's going to be one of them who's going to get really involved in build-up play, to be honest. I'm trying to think of a player people know the type of mould he's in. But he's all about the goals. He'll play between the sticks, in the box. Lively, energetic, really nice kid, down to earth, wants to learn. And it's nice to see he's scored a few goals because I really like him. I know Cloughie's been sending people down. Obviously, I'm involved at Mansfield. I know people have been keeping an eye on him, and I think he'll be taken back in pre-season to see if he can force his way in the squad.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I mean, I know Notts fans are saying, "Oh, sign him up, sign him up." I'd be surprised because I read some of Nigel's comments as well, and it was very much, "We're having him back, and let's see what he can do," like you say, in pre-season. And I wouldn't be surprised if, certainly getting involved in the 16, because he's a good finisher, He's a good finisher.
He is, and I'm glad. I know they were thinking about bringing him back, but I'm glad he stayed there for the season because obviously he'll play, he'll get the minutes, he'll get the experience. Without meaning it sounds old-fashioned, it's a bit more of a man's league at that level. He'll get bumped about a bit. He'll learn how to look after himself, how to use his body. So it's a great experience for the lads. And like I say, I hope that he's got a big future because, like I say, he's willing to learn. He's not one of them who thinks he knows it all. He'll take advice, and he's a really down-to-earth good kid, and I'm pleased with him.
Dale Pikett recalls, "I remember the Weatherspoons being drunk dry that weekend in Torquay by the Notts fans." Nico, let's take a look at the table. Hartlepool but played a lot more games. What's your estimation of how these closing 10 games are going to pan out? Would you make Torquay favourites now or not?
I would make them just favourites. They've got momentum. I think from Sutton's point of view, they had that big kind of 8-point cushion with a game in hand. I think it was at one point, having tracked down Torquay and gone that far ahead of them. I think to have given that lead up, albeit level on points now, I think, aren't they, with a game in hand? I think, yeah. If I was Hartlepool, I'd be quite pleased because I think all the talk really is going to be about Torquay and Sutton because of the games that they've played extra. The fact is that they're by no means out of it. I was looking a little bit at the fixtures the other day, and it's amazing. There's teams like Aldershot and Altrincham keep popping up, and they're going to have a massive say on what's going on because they've got no pressure on them, and they play pretty much all three teams up there. Those games are a nightmare. If you're playing against a team in the relegation places, they're coming out hard. They're going to fight you. They're going to do everything that they can, but they've got to try and win. They've got pressure on them, which is a good thing for you if you could keep your foot on the throat. For teams like your Aldershots now, who I don't think are really going to be pushing for playoffs, and for those mid-table teams, no relegation, no pressure, just go out and play when you've got to win. I think those games are so difficult to call. So the question that you're asking without sitting massively on the fence is that you're going to see some weird results over the next kind of 6 weeks before the season finishes. If you're a betting man, don't, because you're going to get blown out of the water by things that would be nailed on most of the time. But yeah, I would give Torquay the edge. I would say that Sutton will stick with them because I think there's less pressure on them. Not as big a club, with all due respect to Sutton. And I think Hartlepool will be quite happy for everybody to talk about Sutton and Torquay until those last couple of games.
Hartlepool mentioned there by Nico Bish, and of course, you're a Stockton lad, so Hartlepool is pretty close, and I'm sure you've got plenty of pals and all the rest of it who are Hartlepool fans. There seemed to be a kind of a man's side, strong, resilient, and to be honest, I thought they battered us up at their place. They've done the double over us this year. They look a strong, well-organised team.
Yeah, well, obviously, the gaffer, Dave Challoner, I think he's, again, it's a cliche, but he comes across a bit old school. He's got men in the team. Obviously, Gary Little, who we know, not easy. The mate Luke Williams is there, really, really talented player. I was at Scunny when we signed him for like 150 grand from Middlesbrough. Injuries are the only reason he's not playing probably League One / Championship, and then he's sort of like their X factor now. He's come back, and it's a really, really solid team. They've got a way of winning games, and they're just grinding it out. And like I say, in that division, it is ridiculous. I remember a few years ago, probably more than a few years ago, I think Tranmere finished second with like 90 odd points, didn't get promoted, and then got beaten in the playoffs. It's madness. You could have the season of your lives, and getting promoted. So it's horrible. It's a horrible division. We both played it. We know what it's like. Every game's a battle. And I hate to say it, but I agree with Nico. The mid-table teams are absolute horrible games. You know, I think we got them done in League One when not you'll probably remember it, Paul, where I think Bury beat us, was it 4-2?
He had some American guy down the left wing, destroyed us, didn't he?
Probably cost us the playoffs. Mid-table, nothing to play for. Nice sunny day, big crowd in the Meadow Lane. They probably thought, yeah, I'll have a bit of this. And they turned us over, and we missed out on the playoffs, I think, a point that season. And it's like, probably the penultimate home game of the season. Absolutely deep. Bottom half, nothing to play for. You know, turned us over. So it can cost you, and they are games. But look, it's all still to play for. I'll leave Torquay, Kev, but not. They can still get in that playoffs. 100%. I know the fixture list looks the Saturday Tuesdays might catch up with them because I know there's a lot of them to come. But it's the same for everyone. It's the same for everyone, and the chance is still there.
The one forecast that I will make is because it's so tight up there, the team that finishes second and gets pipped on the last day, which is very likely, and goes into the playoffs, will not get promoted. The team that maybe comes in last minute into the playoffs and sneaks in at 6th or 7th, last day win, that kind of thing, which is definitely a possibility. They're the team that go in with nothing to lose, play away from home to begin with, probably all the way through, no pressure on them. They're the dangerous ones when you get to those playoffs, and you see it a lot. The team that misses out last minute when they felt they were going to go up automatically, that's a big thing to pick yourself up ready for what's coming next.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Nico. And it's kind of, I've been a drum I've been trying to bang for the last 2 or 3 weeks because for whatever reason, not so very, very much downplayed playoffs this season. New manager coming in or new head coach, talks just about the next game. Playoffs is kind of a word that's banned. And Notts fans have almost got depressed as a result of that and the results. And a lot of Notts fans go, oh, well, it's no point in getting in the playoffs. We'd lose anyway. Yeah, no. And as we've said, you know, up till 10 days ago, you'd have said Chesterfield storming. They've lost the last 2 now, haven't they? They've got Asante out injured, I think, for about 6 months. They were kind of the form team, but it was always going to be a big ask for Chesterfield to win the next 8, having won about 7 of the last 8. And it's all about 3-4 games, like you say, sneaking momentum. It's what Neil Warnock, ex-Scarborough, consistently did throughout his entire career. And I mean, we're surprised everything got sort of downplayed. You mentioned it earlier, Bish, because I'm guessing you and your type of player, exactly what Conor Rawlinson's finally come out and said yesterday, you know, it's there for us. Grab what you can. Because for me, like you said, Notts' best chance of getting out of this league is this season in the next 10, 11, 12, 13 games, not next season.
Oh, exactly. Look, you can't pick and choose when you're going to be involved in promotion races. Unfortunately, you can't say next season. It just doesn't happen like that. It's not football. You're in there. Why don't you give it everything you've got? I'm sure they are. Look, I know
it's a perception that was created needlessly.
I know, and maybe he's got that wrong because the perception is probably just as well the fans aren't allowed in stadiums, but or there would be uproar. But look, what he says in the media might be the total opposite what he's saying in the dressing room. Maybe he's trying to downplay expectation, whatever. But look, the opportunity's in front of him, and it's still there. And like I said, you look at the league table, you look at the games left; they're coming thick and fast. They can be comfortably in there in 3 or 4 games, you know, and then looking up again. So it can change so quickly. Like I say, the games Tuesday, Wednesday, come around so quickly now, and before you know it, there'll be 2 or 3 games left. But I just hope they're getting there because anything can happen. I mean, look at last season. Who would have backed Harrogate at the start of the season to do what they did? I think they were broke. I was reading an article the other day. I think they were 15th in the betting to get promoted, and then they looked a brilliant team that day out at Wembley against Notts. So, look, if they're in there, anything can happen.
Pythagorean, thank you. Mike Grella, the American player at Bury. He was the guy that destroyed us that day. Well remembered, Pythagorean. Badders 144. Got a good feeling about this weekend. We've been poor, but I could see us getting a result at Torquay and pushing on. All to play for. Lee Brearley, we need to win at least 6, I think. But a good run and a few losses above us, who knows? I mean, yeah, I think roughly you're looking at probably 50% of the remaining games for Notts should get you in the playoffs. You live down the southwest, Nico. I mean, what's the view among fans? Did they thought, first third we're up, second third we've blown it, absolutely useless, and now are sort of believing again.
My general information when it comes to stuff like that is based on social media, which is probably not the place to get any information on anything. I think Torquay fans have generally got pretty good humour. They've been through some tough times. They've had the odd up within that, and I think they're just going along with it. I think there's a lot of faith in Gary Johnson to kind of steer the ship. And like I said before, he's done it already, which I think is a massive advantage when you get to these times. I mean, going off what you were saying there about the day, taking each game as it comes, that I don't mind that narrative if you live in it, where every game is hugely important, but the only one you can affect is the very next one anyway. So what you've just said there about we need to win 6 games, if the players are going to bed worrying about winning 6 games, that sounds big. If you can get the players to be totally focused on winning the next one, but make sure that you passionately believe that you're planned and you're ready and you're going into it with everything that you've got, then I think that is a powerful tool. It's if it becomes blasé or flippant, or it's just the next game, that I know winds up fans. That and what you don't want to do, even when they're not in the stadium, is wind up your fan base, because at the end of the day, if you lose them, the chances are you're going to lose your job at some point sooner rather than later. But the actual narrative of the next game being the most important, and then planning for that, I think is a good one, because winning 6 games out of 10, that sounds a big ask when you say it like that. Winning on Saturday away at Torquay, well, we could probably do that if we get this right and this right and this right. So I haven't seen too much of it in the press in terms of what he's been saying, and obviously it doesn't help when you're saying that and you've lost 4 out of 6 since you've been in, having replaced a guy that was relatively popular by the sound of it. But it's a tough one, the whole manager's job.
Okay, management, you've done it yourself. Do we expect too much too soon when new people come into management or head coaching jobs at clubs?
Probably. I mean, the best advice I was kind of given was, advice, but one of the things that was given to me from a mentor, I suppose, when I first came in, was that in any manager's job, you need time or money. If you get both, you've got no excuses. But if you get given time, you better build something, and you better show progression, and it better be towards an end goal, whether that's how you play, all about promotion, developing the youth, whatever it might be that you're going to be judged on. If you get money, you better win quick. And that's not as easy as it sounds, because there's some guy, I look in the football league, and you'd come across him, Bish, Steve Evans. Steve Evans only goes where there's money. And I tell you what, I wouldn't want to work for him. And I never enjoyed playing against him. And I don't think there's many fans out there like him. But I tell you what, he spends his money well. Like if you get given money, you've still got to spend it well. You've still got to spend it, and you've still got to win quick. Generally speaking, I think managers, you might have that bounce back effect if you come in and take over where the dressing room was low because the manager, was a bit of an arsehole or whatever he might have been. In Knotz's case, it sounds like he's taken over from a guy that was pretty popular within the group. That's tough, because you're already on the back foot coming in. He wasn't sacked because they were massively, massively underachieving halfway down the league. They were in the playoffs. So I think to go in and take over from that, it really puts you on the back foot. He's going to have to be a really good man manager to get them to see that this is a positive and that we've got 10 games to get promoted. But football changes quick. A couple of wins, everybody's on the side. Everyone thinks you're great again, and you're back into being in a good place.
Bish, you're taking kind of the first steps along coaching route. I mean, is management the long-term ambition for you? I mean, how do you see the next few years potentially panning out for you? And does it not concern you that the reality is, in another 4 or 5 years' time, there will be even more demands placed for instant success?
Look, for me, because I've been retired from full-time less than a year. I've got all the badges, but you can give anyone the badges. I haven't got the hours on the grass, and I need that. I'm quite honest with that. In respects to that career, I'm a novice. I'm learning, enjoying learning, loving learning, asking questions, loving watching sessions, watching the first team. I'm doing a little bit with Lincoln, watching them. You know what I mean? I'm just getting as much as much time on the grass and coaching and getting my ideas across and planning sessions and see things that work, things that aren't working, things that I truly believe in that are going to be my I don't know what the right word is, but just the things, my ethos going forwards. You know, it's just, I'm enjoying it, really enjoying it. And I knew it's something I wanted to do for a long time. Like I said, I've done my B license, A license, I've worked through it while I've been a player. It's not something I fell out of football, fell out of playing and just, oh, Christ, what am I going to do now? Which I think happens sometimes. I've seen it happen. But I'm passionate about it. Enjoy working with the youngsters at the minute. To answer the next part of your question, yeah, I do. I really do. I'd love to give it a go. Anytime soon? No, probably not, because I think I've got to be sure of myself, sure of my, I don't know if it's ideology. I love all these people who've got, I play this way, I play that way. Well, I want to play any way which is going to win me football matches, and I think that's the guide I'll go off. The other, and then look, your first job, I don't know. Jobs don't come up very often, you know, and that's the thing. The other thing is, you wait for the right job; it might never come. You know, I might get an opportunity 3, 4, 5 months. So I might not think I'm ready, but the job I want in 2 years time, will it come up? I don't know. So a lot of decisions to be made. Very different for me, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm not going to lie, really enjoying it. I was ready to quit full-time football. Just loving learning, loving getting the time on the grass with the players. It's like I say, something I'm passionate about. And I think if you're there, if you're passionate about it, that's half the battle. Like I said, I'm again talking about Jimmy Knowles as a player, willing to learn. I'm sort of like that novice now as a coach, but I want to learn, and I think that's the thing. I'll take advice from anyone who's willing to give me it.
Hey, there's a good cue. So, what advice, Mr. Nicholson, as is it head of coaching, director of coaching at Exeter City, would you give your old teammate?
He's just nailed it there. Like you can't. The badges are one thing, but everybody's got an A license nowadays. That doesn't differentiate you from the next person. And he's got great experience and has played a lot of games at a really good level, which is fantastic. But again, there's a lot of people out there that have played a lot of games and got A licenses. The stuff that he's just talked about, whether it's his ideologies or his philosophies or how he wants to play the game, the kind of guy that he's going to be as a coach, you can only get that through practice, and you can only get that through trying things and falling flat on your face and trying things and realizing that really works, and then becoming really clear on who you want to be and how you want to do it. I think there's a massive array of coaches out there now. Some of them have come up through learning to coach. They've not played. They've gone through it academically. And then you've got the ex-players. And ex-players tend to be really good at being able to show you what to do, but not necessarily break it down into chunks. So the young kids particularly can learn, well, it's all right, you can give me a demo. You know, I'm sure Bish can get the ball, zing it 50 yards and go, right, do that. Well, yeah, but how? Like, how do I... Well, probably a bad example for Bish, yeah. 50-50 tackle, I can see it now with the under-10s, yeah. But, you know, you need to show them how. You need to tell them how. You need to give them time to practice it. I think the big thing is, as time goes on, I suppose you get your brand. You know, what do people talk about? How do people talk about Bish when he's not there? If a job comes up and someone goes, oh, do you know what? I was watching Bish coach the other day. What do they say? You know, he's really, really good with the lads. He's motivating. He's inspiring. His technical details brilliant. What is it? And then if you get that word out and your reputation grows, then the chances are you will get a stab at it. And then you just hope that your owners and your chairman and the fan base are all behind what you're trying to do, and you buy yourself that time to be successful.
I remember we had Howard Wilkinson on as a guest because he was worked alongside Jimmy Cyril, got the club into the top flight in the Jurassic era, long before both of you were around. And Howard was many years ahead of his time as a 34-year-old assisting Jimmy Cyril. And he wasn't really assisting him, he was running it. And Jimmy was kind of like the director of football. He was more or less from day one. And Howard didn't play massively high up the ladder. A few games for Brighton, Boston United. But he said kind of one of his key abilities was to understand how he wanted a team to be set up, how to play, and then creating that picture and getting the players to execute the picture and understanding what they needed to do. A lot of that was quite a lot of, process, double training sessions back in the 80s, which was quite unusual, rehearsing free kick routines until 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon before a Saturday game. And the players, Trevor Christie, people would tell you, they didn't really like it. And Brian Kilcline tells a wonderful story. He was just 17. He already looked 35. And he said it didn't bother Brian. He said, but the older players hated it. Didn't like being told you got to do this to there to that to that. Just do it. And so they'd do it. And on a Saturday it'd work. You'd beat Liverpool 1-0 or whatever from a set piece. They were losing 1-0 to Arsenal, and a set piece and a corner goal in the last 3 minutes, and Notts beat Arsenal 2-1. And Killer relates the story that the players get more and more frustrated that Howard was always right. You just had to do what Howard said, and then crikey, it works. And then after a little while, win bonuses were halfway in the top flight. Okay, so it wasn't that people actually particularly liked Howard, but they respected him. And I thought it was a great analogy. And as I say, Howard's never been a particularly well-liked man, but he's hugely respected by a now end of people in the game. And that was kind of where he first cut his coaching teeth at Notts. Ben Hawksworth, Bish, what's your philosophy as a coach? Do you believe there's a correct way to play football, i.e. the passing game, or not? I mean, you've half answered it already, but answer Ben's question.
I don't know. Who am I to say the right way and the wrong way? I think that can be derogatory to people to say this is the right way. Obviously, whatever is happening at the top level seems to be the way that everyone else wants to do it. Pepper, tiki-taka, and right, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do this dance, we're going to do that. Yeah, in an ideal world, everyone would want to play that way because everyone was playing the football. You grow up, you don't run around wanting to kick people, but I might have done, but normal people that just kick the ball and chase after it. Everyone as a child growing up wanted to be a footballer, wants to get on the ball, wants to take touch of the football, wants to express themselves. That's a kid in you. That's a kid who plays in the street. Ideally, that is what you want to play. Realistically, can everyone play that way? No, you can't. I think I'll be very pragmatic. You've got to see what squad it is. What's the point in trying to play out from the back if you've got lads who can't handle the football? What's the point? You're going to fall flat on your face. I think pragmatism, there's a lot to be said for it, to go in and see what you've got and develop. If you get time, which seems to be a commodity these days, you might eventually get the players in who can play that way that you want to play. But look, again, this is all speculation because I've never had the opportunity. Hopefully in time I will do. I spoke about it. I want to play this way, I want to play that way. I just want to play winning football, however that may come. And I think if you're doing that and players are seeing results and supporters are seeing results, will buy into it, however way you play. Don't get me wrong, everyone will have an ideal way of playing. In reality, if you're going to do that, if you're going into the lower leagues and non-league, can you do that? That's another thing.
I was lucky when I took over at Torquay. We had a couple of lads on loan from Bournemouth, so I had immediate access to Eddie Howe. So I called him up to give him a feedback on how his lads were doing, and I said, "Look, I hope you don't mind me asking, but I love the way you play." And at that point, even now to a degree, when I watch football, there's that kind of, I suppose, that ego that we've all still got a little bit, even though we know we can no longer run around, that I could do that. I could do that. And I used to watch football and think, I used to watch England play and the left back could get all the time in the world on it. And in League Two, you get smashed if you took more than 2 touches. So I was thinking I could do that. And I watched Bournemouth play Fulham the season they got promoted to the Premier League. And the goalkeeper was rolling it out sideways to the corner flag, the centre half, who was playing 1-2s off his fullback, coming out with the ball. I think Brett Pittman scored a hat-trick and they won about 5-1. And I thought, I couldn't do that. And I don't think I'd want to. I don't think I'd want the ball in that situation. I'd be terrified of what might go wrong. And I said to him, I love the way you play, but how do I, I'm at Torquay. I'm not sure I've got the players to be able to play like that. I said, what? He said, well, we didn't play like that when I first started. He took over when they were like 15 points adrift in League Two. So if you remember, they had big Steve Fletcher, and they used to go from full-back to Steve Fletcher. Fletcher would knock it back to a midfield player, out to the wide man, 1v1, get crosses in the box. So it was pretty much what you class as old school, 4-4-2 essentially. Get the ball to the big man with a little man playing off him, get it out wide, cross the ball in. He said, then we got into League One, I got more money. We played on better pitches. I got better players. Well, I refined what I was going to do then because I had a vision of what I wanted to do. But at the bottom of League Two, 15 points adrift, I couldn't do it. So then all of a sudden we started passing a little bit more. We still hit Big Fletch, still got the ball wide, but now I had the odd winger rotating in and a fullback going on down the outside, and we started looking a bit more expansive. By the time he got to the Championship, he had money that had been invested from the owners. He had the best players in the league. He had the best pitches. You don't play on many kind of sand pits in the Championship. And all of a sudden, he was playing exactly what he wanted to play. And then obviously went on and did that successfully for several years in the Premier League. But he had his philosophy, but he had to alter it before he got to where he really wanted to get. And so I tend to agree with Bish. You've got to take what you've got, put them in positions to be successful, win your games, and then you can start talking about how you really want to play when those opportunities arise.
Very good. And of course, we would be very familiar, Bish, with Bournemouth, wouldn't we? Because we had quite a few battles with them in the fourth tier League Two and the third tier. I remember quite a few clashes with them.
Yeah, he's right. It was 4-4-2, and he was direct at the time. I played against him before coming off with Barnet that season, and it was basic football, but it worked for their needs at that time. He ain't got a problem with that. I'm not one of these football elitists who think rather everyone needs to play the same way. That's not football. It's great to see a clash of styles. I enjoy it. Clash of philosophies, different systems, different shapes. Everyone's different. I don't subscribe to this. We've all got to play this way because this is what's happening at Man City, Barcelona, and this is the way forward. Like I say, Eddie's been lucky. He's been given that time. He's probably been given the money. Like Nico's just said himself. The situation was right for him to and he's had the time to evolve his system, which he's done very well. Make no mistake about it, but a lot of people don't get that time these days.
Richard Hawksworth has just picked up one of your points, Kev. You've said in League Two you're going to get hammered if you take more than 2 touches. What's your view on Nott's current philosophy? I'm guessing you won't have seen all things, which is total football in the National League. I think certainly Ian wants to play a certain style. Do you have to be a little bit more direct in the National League to achieve success or not? I mean, how's Gary set it up at Torquay this year?
I think I talked about Danny Wright earlier on. They've got the traditional big man up front, so they've always got an out. I respect anybody that wants to play total football coming out the back, and I really respect anybody that wants to try and do it in the National League, but you'll be able to do it for the first couple of months when the pitches are good. And then you'll get to October and it starts to rain. And then you'll get some pitches where the ball will barely roll. And then you really get to test how deeply you believe in that philosophy. Because giving the ball away at the back where the fans are back in the stadium and you're not playing as well as you'd like to and those kind of things, that really tests you. I suppose my own experience at Torquay when I was managing there, it was a case of putting the players in positions to maximise the strengths, to minimise the weaknesses and get the ball not away from our goal quickly, but in the opposition half with quality so we could try and play up there because you've got more chance of – you actually end up scoring more goals, winning the ball back when the opposition have got it than you do. I mean, how many goals do you see like passed from back all the way to front and tapped in? A lot of the time it's more Liverpool, like when they were really flying, when it was – counter press, give the ball away, win it back quick, and then you've got your chance of scoring. I then went and managed a club in Cornwall, and the owner there was about total football, and we were playing on some horrendous pitches, but there is a power and there is a strength to saying to your team, and this is what I had to say, you are not kicking it long, you will play the ball out, I'll show you how that will look. If you give the ball away, it's my fault. I'm the manager, it's my fault. I'm telling you to do this. If you start shelling it long, we're falling out. If you give the ball away, trying to do the right thing with the ball on the floor, I can accept that and it's on me. And I saw some players play some incredible football that were nowhere near the level of what the lads at Notts County will be. But my personal and honest opinion on that is that you're probably going to struggle if you haven't got an out ball, if you haven't got something that's going to hurt the opposition, because the moment everyone realises all you do is play the ball short, everybody pushes up, everybody puts that pressure on. And if you can't stretch them and you can't get in that side of them, I'm not sure how many conference players are good enough to pass it through lines play in triangles and do the Man City way. You know, the general consensus would be that if you get 2-0 up and you put 5 or 6 passes together in the last 10 minutes, most fans go away happy that you look like you're a good footballing team, but winning is always going to be the most important thing to them. Yeah,
I can kind of hear, huge consensus among all the Notts fans listening right now, because certainly under Neal for the 18-19 months in the conference, and with Ian, the one thing that has really hurt us has been the high press, opposition high press. And don't get me wrong, we got to a playoff final last year. When we've had problems, it has been a high press. And in the English football climate, as much as we talk about total football, we want goalmouth action, don't we? And we've had a lot of possession in a lot of games this season, and it's 0-0 with 15 minutes to go. And of course the opposition quite clearly think they've got half a shout, then, don't they?
I would hate to patronise any other manager or any other coach when it's their philosophy.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of stuff gets misinterpreted. You watch Man City, you watch Liverpool. I mean, look at the Man City goalkeeper. If he spots a ball and it's 80 yards away, he'll play it. He doesn't always play out the back. Now, that immediately tells the opposition that if we just press high, we're going to get done. So they can't press high. They can't just accept that that's what they're always going to do. But when you watch the highlight reels, you see Man City playing out with a goalkeeper playing as a pivot on his own 6-yard box. And it's brilliant and it's incredible and it's world class. But they'll also hit their fair share of diags to Sterling or on the opposite wing. Liverpool, Van Dijk will also hit no end of diags to stretch the play. So they're then able to be able to go and play what they want to play. If you haven't got that variation, and I think a lot of us, in England, Bish mentioned tiki-taka. You watch that, that's brilliant. And then you get sucked into doing it, and it's a poor version of it. It hasn't got all of the fundamentals that allow it to work. And so I think we get a little bit tunnel vision on the pretty little stuff and forget that actually your Man Cities of this world will still hit 50-yard passes when they're on, because that will scare the opposition into really pressing them. And when they're at their best, they're incredibly good at it because they can hit 50-yard accurate passes to where they want them to go.
You've got the Nico Appreciation Society now. Richard Hawksworth, you've just described everything that is currently the problem at Notts. Nico, Kelsdyke, Nico speaks so much sense. We need a route out of this league that has been proven with the right players. Simon Blair, totally agree, Kev. Not enough consistency of skill to play total football full-time at this level. Before we finish, I'd like to ask you, for both of you guys, because it's quite a hot topic at Notts, irrespective of promotion this season, playoffs, or staying in the National League. And you may have heard that Notts are, for want of a better phrase, looking to adopt a more moneyball approach, data-driven approach, through which Ian Birchinall, the head coach, is a component of the recruitment, and that a large amount of video data, statistical data is selected, players are shortlisted, head coach sees a list, whatever, and clearly the head coach, I am sure, I'd like to think so, can say, oh, this player as well. But I think the phrase is collaborative approach, whatever that means. Kev, clearly it's an unusual role that you have at Exeter, but it's also a very successful one, certainly in the players that you create and produce. But probably most importantly, you're getting results and you're in the playoff picture. What do you think? And I know you don't know the specifics, but what do you kind of think of that as an approach?
I think a collaborative approach is massively important. I think if your owners, your chairman, your directors, your manager, your assistant, your fan base, if everybody knows what's going on, if collaboratively you get all that data and you make those decisions, I think on paper that is a strong possibility of being successful if you get the right players. What is missing completely is, I hope there's no kids necessarily watching, but what if you sign a dickhead? It's great having a look at data, and it's great. And I've seen this model. Barnsley have done something similar in the past. I know Brentford are similar along those lines. I think there's a huge amount more to being a successful footballer than just having good stats and looking good on Championship Manager. You've got to take the person into account. You've got to take family. You've got to take background. You've got to take their character. You've got to take all that stuff. The character of a player is going to be the most important thing. Everything that all these fans have said about how great Bish is, the single thing that stands out the most is his character, his willingness to fight and scrap when things are going right or things are going wrong. If you're signing Moneyball type players and they're not of that ilk, then you're going to find yourself in a real tough spot because you've got them then. And at National League level, it's really hard to get players out when you don't want them, because where do they go? The next level down is not all full time. There's a lot of part time. They can't afford your players. I got CVs sent across my desk when I was managing at Torquay for Notts players when you're in League Two, and I thought, fantastic, but I can't afford any of them. I thought, yeah, love that, but I was on that money. So I think there's a lot of pros to it. I totally believe in being collaborative. It's what Exeter do better than any club I've ever come across. From first team to the academy to the chairman to the trust, everybody that's involved in making Exeter a successful club. But you're missing out a huge amount of what's really important when putting together a group of good players at a level where it's really fine lines. There's a lot of players that are much of a muchness when you go lower down the leagues. You've not got your world-class standouts like you have in the Premier League. You've got a lot of hard-working, decent professionals. And one of the biggest things that will stand them apart is their attitude and their willingness to buy into what you're doing.
Bish, your recruitment, so Tommy Johnson told us, your recruitment to Notts County started when you were at Barnet, didn't it? And you were being battered by Notts. And Tommy had a word with you while you were coming down the tunnel, didn't he? Come and join us, Bish.
Yeah, I think Johnny Forte scored a first half hat-trick at Undale. We were just getting battered. And I think I just took it as a personal insult that day because it was embarrassing. I was out there and everyone had gave up and I was just like a man possessed, and I think it was the tightest I've ever been after a game. Didn't make any difference because we kept it at 3-0. And I remember coming off it and I was absolutely, honestly, I'd be headed gone. And I was just walking in the dressing room ready to, like I said, it bit old school, but I was just ready to fight anyone. I was just having it because I thought we'd just be, and I was kicking boot skips, and Tommy was waiting there. He goes, fancy Santos at the end of the season, Bish. And I said, fuck off, Tom, like, you're not now, sort of thing. Now he's not, and I thought I blew it. You know, when I'm driving home after the game and I calmed down, I thought, shit, I've maybe blew me move there by telling Tom. But yeah, Nico's covered everything, and he's beat me to the phrase. Much of a muchness, ability wise. The bits of difference is that attitude, that desire to go to be that person when you're getting beat. Can you turn it around? You're 2-0 down. Do you accept it, or do you rally the troops? Do you stand there soaking? Do you spit your dummy out? Yeah. Or do you get in the dressing room? Do you trumps? The staff will tell you only certain many things. You know what? They might look great on paper. The YouTube comes in. What you can have 20 introverts in your dressing room all sat there like mutes. You know what I mean? When the chips are down and you've got no one rallying them, who's the leader in the group? You need 5 or 6 leaders in that group, good, solid, really good pros, in every day, do everything right. And for me, what I've seen, the majority of them will see, oh God, these lads are at it. I'm going to be part of that group. You get 5 or 6 really good lads in that dressing room, great attitudes, want the same as the manager, the club, and the rest will follow. You know, but I think, and again, sorry, just another thing. Collaborative is the way for me. You see so many times. How many times as a manager? He's in. It's probably like Steve Evans, but I'm signing the players here. But then that manager leaves. New manager comes in and doesn't want all these players. You know what I mean? I think MK Dons do it well. I think they've got a philosophy where they play football. They know what type of players they're bringing in, and they do it really well. So there's a lot to be said for it. But like, it's certainly on the human level, for me, you'd always want eyes on your players more than probably 5-6 times. Like I say, when they're having a nightmare, how do they react? They just drift out of the game. Do they sulk? Do they blame everyone else? Do they stand there, pointing fingers? It's not my day today, so I'll just have this one off and I'll be back again Tuesday. But yeah, it's certainly, the game's evolving. The game's evolving, Paul, and I think that's going to be a big part of it going forward for a lot of clubs.
And where are they recruiting from would be my other question. Like, if they're recruiting them from the best players in League Two, or maybe the best players in the conference where they're already at, or even in the conference North and South who know the kind of level, then that could be of a real strength. If you're recruiting them from all over Europe, there is not another league in Europe like the National League. So no one will have any idea what they're coming into. And again, that's sink or swim stuff. Some will hit the ground running and they'll thrive, no doubt. But some will look around and get lifted by somebody like Bish in the middle of midfield that they wouldn't have had at the league that they've been before. And all of a sudden now what? And that would be another thing. Where you recruit them from is going to be big.
Yeah, I mean, quite bizarrely, Boris Johnson has probably done us a big favour, because clearly that model saw us looking to Europe. A Belgium that had been in Bulgaria, a Portuguese that had been in Holland. And I think now there are challenges with work permits because we've come out of the EU. So I think they're going to look more now at a UK-based approach, and that would tend to have been suggested from the more recent players that have been brought in. But I think it's fair to say it is a hot topic among Notts fans. It's a very hot topic, and you mentioned Barnsley and Brentford, and clearly it has worked extremely well. Extremely well for them. The model hasn't yet necessarily been tried and tested in the National League, and so sometimes it can be good if it works first time. Others, it's not so good to be a guinea pig. So I think there are definitely some concerns and reservations among the Notts fan base, which again, we started this off. The best chance for Notts to go up is this season. Chances are National League is going to be more competitive next season. You're going to have probably Grimsby and Southend, established league clubs, coming down. At the minute, you are playing teams that have furloughed their players. We had Martin Tyler on from Woking, known him for years, great guy, assistant manager at Woking. And on the show before we were playing Woking, he said we furloughed about 7 of our best players last week, Paul. So we're not quite sure what team we're going to put out. So you've got that. But look, I can tell, Mr. Nicholson, you are now required for child-minding duties, and we've overstayed our welcome.
He's on the phone. He's all good. I can't believe how quiet he's been. That's I was expecting one of those newsreader type things where he comes in and I have to. But he's all right. He's all right.
But more for the Nico Appreciation Society. Good grief, Nico, says Richard Hawksworth. I am speechless. You have nailed the biggest problem that we have got. So you wouldn't recruit players from obscure Scandinavian, Bulgarian leagues who have no experience. What I would say, Richard, is I've just kind of outlined, I think that European model is off the table now because of us coming out of the EU. Nico, so what do you reckon Saturday? Are Torquay on too much of a roll at the minute for Notts?
Honestly, yeah, I wouldn't. I think I sat on the fence last time you asked me a question like this, so I'd hate to let you down. I would say, it's a pretty obvious one on current form, isn't it? I would be surprised. No pressure on Notts going there, so in that sense, so you never do know. But I would say 2-0 Notts. 2-0 Torquay would be my guess on that.
The Torquay followers are jumping up and down on the message board now, so that's good. Bish, it's difficult, I know, because obviously you don't see all the games all the time. Do you genuinely believe playoffs is what Notts should be able to deliver this season?
You'd like to think, you'd like to hope so. Again, I'll be making an educated guess because, like I said, I don't watch all the games, but I see little bits and pieces. I've seen a bit of that league, and if they don't, then I'd say something's gone badly wrong, and that's probably as much as I could say without going into detail. Because, like I say, I wouldn't try and sit here and pretend I can do. But I look at that league, and I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be in the playoffs. I just don't see it unless, like you say, unless something's gone badly wrong.
Guys, thank you very much for your very insightful chat. Loads of people listening, as I would absolutely expect tonight. Great as always to hear a professional's view. A lot of Notts fans are a little bit frustrated at the minute, and understandably so. We have, for the first time in our history, lost 3 straight games in the National League, so it's not great. However, perception, at least from the players, from Connell this week, trying to bang the drum a little bit. As always, thank you so much for your honest, insightful analysis. Bish, I know Notts fans will be avidly following your progress. We wish you absolutely every success in the future. Kev, it's clearly a great model that you've spoken about at Exeter. A great model, and I know that you're quite literally travelling around the country with kind of more young players off that Exeter production line. So clearly, it's a great setup down there. I have to say, I am not a fan of the trust model. I'm not a fan, but clearly that Exeter ownership structure is working extremely well, because when Notts got to the playoffs under Kevin Nolan, the following year basically just collapsed. Exeter, I think, were in the playoffs the same year. And I thought one of the most remarkable things they were able to do was, in losing Paul Tisdale, given his longevity at the club, was to carry on, still knocking on those playoffs, which is not easy. And that tells me that Exeter have got a very good model that works.
Yeah, I think Matt Taylor came in from the academy, so he knew the club. He knew that. I mean, obviously, he played for the club. His assistant Wayne Carlisle was doing the job that I do now, and again played for the club, coached for the club. The first team coach came in as an under-9 coach and worked his way across the academy. So they know the system. They know the value of the academy players. They know how important it is to have homegrown talent mixed in with some experience at the level. And they knew how it worked. So that consistency and that continuity was a massive strength for how the club worked and how it continued to be up and around the right areas of League Two.
Kev, Neal, thank you ever so much indeed for your time, as always. It's been great listening and talking with you. All the very best to Exeter and to Mansfield, especially. Is it the under-16s or the under-18s, Bish, at the minute?
Yeah, the 18s, yeah. Oh, well, mate, loving it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks again, and we look forward to catching up again soon. Take care.
Yeah, see you later, lads.